Imagine stepping into a 1950s kitchen on a sweltering summer afternoon. The oven stayed cold, but the refrigerator held something far more exciting. Betty Crocker Icebox desserts were creamy, colorful, and effortless treats that brought families together after every Sunday dinner, church picnic, and backyard gathering. Today, many of these once-beloved recipes have quietly disappeared from American tables, surviving only in worn cookbooks and cherished family memories. In this video, we are uncovering 25 forgotten Betty Crocker Icebox desserts that once defined summer across America. You may recognize a childhood favorite, discover a recipe your grandmother proudly served, or uncover a sweet tradition that deserves to return. Let's open the refrigerator door and travel back to a cooler, simpler time. 1. Chocolate wafer icebox cake. Long before refrigerated desserts filled supermarket freezer cases, one humble chocolate wafer cake became the pride of countless Betty Crocker kitchens during the 1950s. On hot afternoons when opening the oven felt unbearable, homemakers reached for a simple package of crisp chocolate wafers, fresh whipping cream, and a little patience. What looked like an ordinary stack of cookies would transform overnight into something that amazed every guest at the dinner table. The recipe appeared in several mid-century Betty Crocker collections because it celebrated one of the greatest conveniences of the era, a dependable refrigerator. Housewives carefully spread lightly sweetened whipped cream between each wafer, stacking them one by one before coating the entire log with another generous layer of cream. The dessert was then tucked into the coldest shelf of the refrigerator and left untouched until the following day. By morning, something almost magical had happened. The once crisp wafers absorbed just enough moisture from the cream to become soft, tender layers that closely resembled rich chocolate sponge cake. Every slice revealed beautiful black and white stripes, making the dessert look far more complicated than it actually was. It became a favorite for birthday parties, church socials, neighborhood picnics, and Sunday family dinners because it required no baking and very little expense. Children often hovered near the refrigerator, hoping someone would decide the cake had chilled long enough. Adults loved serving it because compliments always followed the very first slice. Although modern desserts have become flashier and far more elaborate, few can match the simple charm and satisfying surprise hidden inside this forgotten refrigerator classic. If your grandmother ever served a chocolate wafer icebox cake during the summer, you probably remember that first cool, creamy bite long after the last slice disappeared from the platter forever. 2. Lemon chiffon icebox pie. Few desserts captured the bright optimism of the 1950s quite like Betty Crocker's lemon chiffon icebox pie. Light as a summer breeze and bursting with fresh citrus flavor, it quickly became a favorite whenever families gathered for Sunday dinners or neighborhood picnics. During an era when home refrigerators were becoming common across America, chilled desserts like this symbolized modern convenience without sacrificing homemade charm. The pie began with a buttery graham cracker crust, pressed firmly into a glass pie plate and chilled until firm. Meanwhile, fresh lemon juice, grated zest, sugar, egg yolks, and dissolved gelatin were blended into a silky filling that promised a refreshing finish after a hearty meal. Once the mixture cooled slightly, fluffy whipped egg whites and freshly whipped cream were folded in gently, creating the airy texture that gave chiffon desserts their famous name. After several hours in the refrigerator, the filling transformed into a smooth, cloud-like slice that held its shape beautifully while practically melting in your mouth. Its pale yellow color looked cheerful on every dessert table, especially when topped with delicate curls of lemon zest or a swirl of whipped cream. The contrast between the crisp graham crust and the delicate filling made every bite feel both rich and refreshingly light. For many families, this pie marked the unofficial beginning of summer. It appeared at Mother's Day celebrations, graduation parties, church socials, and 4th of July gatherings, often disappearing long before any other dessert on the table. Housewives appreciated that it looked elegant enough for company while requiring very little oven time during the hottest months of the year. Although modern bakeries offer countless lemon desserts today, few capture the same homemade elegance and refreshing simplicity that made this forgotten Betty Crocker favorite a treasured centerpiece of countless American family celebrations decades ago. 3. Crown Jewel Gelatin Icebox Dessert. Few desserts captured the colorful spirit of the 1950s quite like the dazzling crown jewel gelatin icebox dessert. Long before extravagant cakes dominated celebrations, this shimmering creation stole the spotlight with its bright cubes of fruit-flavored gelatin suspended inside a creamy, cloud-like filling. It looked almost too beautiful to eat, making it a favorite centerpiece at church suppers, bridal showers, and neighborhood potlucks. Betty Crocker embraced the growing popularity of gelatin desserts during the decade, when convenience foods were transforming American kitchens. Homemakers prepared several flavors of gelatin separately, allowing each one to chill until completely firm before cutting them into neat, jewel-like cubes. Cherry, lime, orange, and lemon were popular choices, creating a colorful mosaic that delighted both children and adults. The creamy base was just as important as the sparkling cubes. Sweetened whipped cream was gently blended with lightly flavored gelatin, creating a smooth mixture that held everything together without hiding the vibrant colors inside. The jewel-like cubes were folded in carefully, then poured into a decorative ring mold and refrigerated for several hours until perfectly set. When the mold was inverted onto a serving platter, guests were greeted with a spectacular dessert that resembled stained glass glowing beneath the dining room lights. Every slice revealed colorful pieces scattered throughout the creamy filling, turning even an ordinary family dinner into a special occasion. It was proof that simple pantry ingredients could become something truly memorable with a little patience and imagination. Although modern desserts often rely on elaborate decorations, few achieve the same playful elegance that this forgotten classic delivered. It reflected an era when presentation mattered almost as much as flavor, and every carefully unmolded dessert carried a sense of pride. If this sparkling masterpiece ever appeared on your family's table, chances are everyone waited eagerly for the first colorful slice to be served. 4. Strawberry Ribbon Icebox Pie. When fresh strawberries began filling roadside stands each summer, Betty Crocker gave homemakers the perfect way to celebrate the season without ever heating the kitchen. The strawberry ribbon icebox pie quickly became a 1950s favorite, admired not only for its sweet berry flavor but also for the beautiful layers that made every slice look like it came from an upscale bakery. The dessert started with a crisp graham cracker crust, pressed into a pie plate with melted butter and chilled until firm. Fresh strawberries were mashed with sugar and blended into strawberry gelatin, creating a vibrant ruby-red filling that captured the taste of early summer. Once the first layer had set in the refrigerator, a second mixture was prepared by folding whipped cream into lightly thickened strawberry gelatin. This airy topping created a soft pink ribbon above the deeper red fruit layer, giving the pie its memorable name. After several hours of chilling, the filling became smooth, cool, and perfectly sliceable. The contrast between the rich berry layer and the fluffy cream topping made every bite feel light yet satisfying. Many homemakers finished the pie with whole strawberries or delicate whipped cream rosettes, turning a simple refrigerator dessert into the centerpiece of the table. This pie often appeared at family reunions, garden parties, and 4th of July picnics, where its bright colors matched the cheerful mood of the season. Children loved its sweet strawberry flavor, while adults appreciated that it could be prepared well in advance, leaving more time to enjoy family and guests instead of working in a hot kitchen. Although countless strawberry desserts fill bakery shelves today, few capture the same homemade charm and refreshing simplicity as this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. Every chilled slice reminded families that sometimes the most unforgettable summer memories were created with fresh berries, a reliable refrigerator, and recipes passed lovingly from one generation to the next. 5. Pineapple Cream Icebox Squares. Few ingredients represented tropical luxury in the 1950s quite like canned pineapple. Thanks to improved food distribution after World War II, this once exotic fruit became an affordable pantry staple, inspiring Betty Crocker to feature it in refreshing refrigerator desserts that brightened even the hottest summer afternoons. Among the most beloved was Pineapple Cream Icebox Squares, a dessert that combined creamy richness with a burst of sunny flavor. The recipe began with a layer of crisp vanilla wafers arranged neatly across the bottom of a square glass baking dish. A smooth filling was prepared by blending softened cream cheese with powdered sugar until perfectly silky, then gently folding in well-drained crushed pineapple and freshly whipped cream. The result was light, fluffy, and packed with sweet tropical flavor without feeling overly heavy. Another layer of vanilla wafers was added before the remaining pineapple cream was spread evenly across the top. After several hours in the refrigerator, something remarkable happened. The once crisp cookies slowly absorbed moisture from the filling, becoming soft cake-like layers while still holding their shape. Every square revealed beautiful stripes of creamy filling separated by delicate golden wafers. This dessert became a familiar sight at neighborhood cookouts, church fellowship meals, and family reunions because it could be prepared the night before and served straight from the refrigerator. It looked elegant enough for guests yet required only simple grocery store ingredients that nearly every homemaker already had on hand. Children loved discovering tiny bits of pineapple hidden inside every bite, while adults appreciated its refreshing balance of sweetness and creamy texture. The cool slices offered welcome relief after long afternoons spent mowing lawns, gardening, or watching children play beneath the summer sun. Although pineapple desserts remain popular today, this classic Betty Crocker refrigerator favorite has quietly faded from most family tables. Yet one taste is enough to understand why generations once considered it the perfect ending to a warm summer meal shared with loved ones. 6. Graham Cracker Mocha Icebox Cake. As instant coffee became a household staple during the 1950s, creative Betty Crocker recipes found new ways to bring its rich flavor beyond the breakfast table. One of the most memorable was the Graham Cracker Mocha Icebox Cake, a simple refrigerator dessert that transformed everyday pantry ingredients into an elegant treat worthy of entertaining guests. It proved that a touch of coffee could make an ordinary dessert feel surprisingly sophisticated. The cake began with a bowl of heavy cream whipped until thick and fluffy. A spoonful of instant coffee dissolved in a little warm water was blended into the cream along with sugar and a splash of vanilla, creating a smooth mocha filling with just the right balance of sweetness and bold flavor. Honey graham crackers were then arranged on a serving platter, each layer generously covered with the coffee cream before another sheet of crackers was added. Once assembled, the cake rested overnight in the refrigerator, where time worked its quiet magic. The crisp graham crackers gradually absorbed moisture from the whipped filling, softening into delicate cake-like layers that sliced cleanly without a single minute in the oven. A light dusting of grated chocolate or cocoa powder over the top gave the finished dessert a polished appearance that looked far more complicated than it really was. This icebox cake became especially popular after Sunday dinners, bridge club gatherings, and evening visits with neighbors. Adults appreciated its gentle coffee flavor, while children eagerly enjoyed the creamy layers without realizing the dessert contained a hint of the grown-ups' favorite beverage. Today, towering coffeehouse cakes may steal the spotlight, but they often lack the quiet charm of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. Every chilled slice reflected the resourcefulness of a generation that knew simple ingredients, a dependable refrigerator, and a little patience could create a dessert that felt every bit as special as something from an expensive bakery, leaving lasting memories around every family table. 7. Raspberry Bavarian Icebox Cream. Elegant enough for holiday tables yet simple enough for an ordinary Sunday dinner, Raspberry Bavarian Icebox Cream became one of Betty Crocker's most admired chilled desserts during the 1950s. Inspired by classic European Bavarian creams but adapted for busy American kitchens, it offered families a touch of sophistication without requiring professional baking skills or expensive ingredients. The dessert began with raspberry gelatin dissolved in hot water before being combined with mashed raspberries or thawed frozen berries, depending on the season. As the mixture cooled, it slowly thickened into a silky base with a deep ruby color and an inviting fruity aroma. Freshly whipped cream was then folded in carefully, creating a light, airy texture that gave Bavarian cream its famous cloud-like consistency while preserving the vibrant raspberry flavor. Instead of being poured into a simple bowl, many homemakers chose decorative metal or glass molds that transformed the dessert into a centerpiece. After several hours in the refrigerator, the cream became perfectly firm while remaining incredibly smooth. When the mold was dipped briefly in warm water and turned onto a serving platter, guests admired the beautiful shape before anyone reached for a spoon. A few fresh raspberries, mint leaves, or extra whipped cream often completed the presentation, making the dessert look worthy of a fine restaurant despite its humble preparation. It frequently appeared at anniversary dinners, bridal showers, and church luncheons where elegant presentation mattered just as much as delicious flavor. Although countless raspberry desserts are available today, few recreate the delicate balance of freshness, creaminess, and old-fashioned charm that made this Betty Crocker favorite unforgettable. Every spoonful carried the sweet taste of summer along with memories of polished dining tables, sparkling crystal dishes, and families gathering together to celebrate life's simplest moments. It remains a beautiful reminder that true elegance often came from patience, careful preparation, and recipes shared across generations with love. 8. Orange Creamsicle Icebox Pie. Nothing announced the arrival of summer in the 1950s quite like the cheerful flavor of oranges. Betty Crocker's Orange Creamsicle Icebox Pie captured that familiar taste in a dessert that reminded families of neighborhood ice cream trucks, backyard laughter, and long afternoons spent beneath clear blue skies. It quickly earned a place in countless recipe boxes because it was refreshing, colorful, and wonderfully simple to prepare. The pie began with a buttery vanilla wafer crust, pressed firmly into a pie plate and chilled until crisp. The filling combined frozen orange juice concentrate with sweetened condensed milk, creating a bright citrus base that was both creamy and tangy. Freshly whipped cream was gently folded into the mixture, giving it a smooth, airy texture that perfectly echoed the famous frozen treats children eagerly chased down the street each summer. After several hours in the refrigerator, the filling became firm enough to slice while remaining incredibly light. The soft orange color looked beautiful against the golden crust, and many homemakers decorated the top with delicate orange zest curls or small whipped cream rosettes before serving. Every bite delivered the refreshing combination of sweet vanilla and lively citrus that made the classic creamsicle such a treasured childhood favorite. This dessert became especially popular during 4th of July celebrations, family picnics, and neighborhood cookouts because it could be prepared ahead of time and served ice-cold on the hottest days of the year. Children smiled at its familiar flavor, while adults appreciated its elegant appearance and effortless preparation. Although modern freezers are filled with countless frozen desserts, few capture the same homemade warmth that this forgotten Betty Crocker pie delivered. It represented an era when simple ingredients, careful preparation, and a reliable refrigerator were enough to create unforgettable family memories. One cool slice was all it took to turn an ordinary summer evening into a celebration that everyone remembered long after the last crumb had disappeared from the plate. 9. Cherry Almond Ladyfinger Icebox Torte. During the 1950s, nothing impressed dinner guests quite like a dessert that looked elegant but required very little baking. Betty Crocker's Cherry Almond Ladyfinger Icebox Torte became a favorite for homemakers who wanted to serve something beautiful after a Sunday roast or during an afternoon bridge party. With its delicate sponge biscuits, creamy filling, and bright cherries, it brought a touch of bakery-style sophistication to the family table. The dessert began by arranging crisp ladyfingers around the sides and across the bottom of a springform pan, creating a decorative border that would be revealed when the pan was removed. The filling combined whipped cream, softened cream cheese, sugar, a splash of almond extract, and finely chopped maraschino cherries. The almond flavor added a gentle richness that perfectly balanced the sweet cherries without overpowering them. Once the creamy mixture was spooned into the prepared pan, the dessert was placed in the refrigerator for several hours. During that time, the ladyfingers gradually softened as they absorbed moisture from the filling, transforming into tender cake-like layers while still holding the entire torte together. When the springform ring was released, the finished dessert stood proudly on its own, surrounded by its neat border of golden biscuits. Many homemakers decorated the top with whipped cream swirls, whole cherries, and a sprinkle of toasted almonds, giving the torte an elegant appearance that made it look worthy of a special celebration. It often appeared at birthdays, anniversaries, bridal showers, and holiday dinners, earning compliments before anyone even tasted the first slice. Today, desserts are often decorated with elaborate designs and expensive ingredients, yet few deliver the timeless charm of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. Every cool, creamy bite reflected an era when thoughtful presentation, simple pantry staples, and family traditions mattered far more than perfection. It remains a delicious reminder that the most memorable desserts were often the ones made with patience, care, and genuine hospitality. 10. Peanut butter chocolate icebox pie. As peanut butter became a pantry staple in post-war America, Betty Crocker found creative ways to turn this everyday favorite into unforgettable desserts. One recipe that quickly earned a loyal following was peanut butter chocolate icebox pie. Rich, creamy, and wonderfully refreshing, it combined two flavors families already loved while keeping the kitchen comfortably cool during the hottest days of summer. The pie started with a crisp chocolate cookie crust made from finely crushed chocolate wafers blended with melted butter and pressed firmly into a pie plate. While the crust chilled, smooth peanut butter was beaten with powdered sugar, vanilla extract, and softened cream cheese until silky. Freshly whipped cream was folded into the mixture, creating a light filling that balanced the richness of the peanut butter without becoming overly heavy. The creamy filling was spread evenly into the prepared crust and refrigerated for several hours until perfectly firm. Just before serving, many homemakers finished the pie with chocolate curls, crushed roasted peanuts, or a drizzle of homemade chocolate syrup. The combination of the crisp chocolate crust and the smooth peanut butter filling created a dessert that tasted surprisingly luxurious despite being made from simple grocery store ingredients. Children eagerly waited for dessert whenever this pie appeared after family dinners, while adults appreciated how easily it could be prepared a day in advance. It became a welcome addition to neighborhood cookouts, church socials, birthday celebrations, and backyard gatherings, where every chilled slice disappeared almost as quickly as it was served. Although modern dessert counters overflow with peanut butter creations, few carry the same nostalgic comfort as this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. It reflected a time when simple recipes brought families together around the dinner table and homemade treats meant far more than fancy decorations. Every cool, creamy bite reminded people that some of America's greatest desserts were created not with complicated techniques, but with familiar ingredients, loving hands, and the quiet patience of an overnight stay in the refrigerator. 11. Toasted coconut icebox squares. Few pantry ingredients felt as special to a 1950s homemaker as shredded coconut. It added an exotic touch to everyday desserts without stretching the family budget, and Betty Crocker featured it in several refrigerator treats that quickly became summertime favorites. Among the most memorable was toasted coconut icebox squares, a cool dessert that blended creamy vanilla filling with the irresistible aroma of freshly toasted coconut. The recipe began by lightly toasting shredded coconut in a dry skillet until it turned golden brown and filled the kitchen with a warm, nutty fragrance. Meanwhile, a layer of graham crackers was arranged neatly in the bottom of a square glass baking dish. A rich vanilla cream, made with homemade pudding or a smooth custard, was spread generously over the crackers before a handful of the toasted coconut was sprinkled across the top. The process was repeated several times, building delicate layers of graham crackers, creamy filling, and fragrant coconut. Once assembled, the dessert rested overnight in the refrigerator. During those quiet hours, the crackers absorbed moisture from the creamy layers, softening into tender cake-like sheets while the toasted coconut kept its gentle crunch, creating a delightful contrast in every bite. When cut into neat squares, the dessert revealed beautiful layers that looked far more elaborate than the simple ingredients suggested. It became a welcome sight at church suppers, neighborhood gatherings, family reunions, and Sunday dinners, where guests often requested the recipe before leaving the table. Children loved the sweet coconut flavor, while adults appreciated its light texture after a hearty summer meal. Every chilled square carried the comforting taste of homemade hospitality and reminded families that elegance did not require expensive ingredients. Although coconut desserts remain popular today, this forgotten Betty Crocker refrigerator classic has quietly disappeared from many kitchens. Yet its delicate balance of creamy vanilla, crisp graham crackers, and golden toasted coconut still captures the simple magic of a 1950s summer shared with family and friends. 12. Banana pudding icebox delight. Long before boxed dessert cups filled supermarket shelves, homemade banana pudding was one of the sweetest traditions of a 1950s summer. Betty Crocker helped popularize a chilled icebox version that required very little effort but delivered the comforting flavors families loved. Cool, creamy, and layered with ripe bananas, it became a dependable favorite for Sunday dinners, church socials, and neighborhood gatherings where simple homemade desserts were always appreciated. The recipe started with a layer of crisp vanilla wafers arranged neatly across the bottom of a clear glass baking dish. Fresh bananas, sliced just before assembling to preserve their color and flavor, were placed evenly over the cookies. A silky vanilla pudding, prepared from scratch or with one of the new convenience mixes becoming popular during the decade, was poured gently over the fruit, completely covering every layer. The process was repeated until the dish was full, finishing with a generous blanket of whipped cream spread smoothly across the top. Some homemakers decorated the dessert with crushed vanilla wafers or a few banana slices before placing it in the refrigerator overnight. As the hours passed, the cookies softened into delicate cake-like layers while the bananas infused the pudding with their natural sweetness, creating a dessert that tasted even better the next day. Children eagerly searched for the soft vanilla wafers hidden beneath the creamy filling, while adults appreciated how the chilled dessert offered welcome relief after a warm summer meal. It quickly became one of those dependable recipes that appeared at birthdays, family reunions, picnics, and holiday celebrations because everyone knew it would disappear before the evening was over. Although countless banana desserts have appeared over the years, few have matched the timeless comfort of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. Every spoonful carried the familiar taste of home, reminding families that some of life's happiest memories were created around a simple glass dish resting quietly inside the refrigerator, waiting to be shared together. 13. Grasshopper Icebox Pie. With its soft pastel green color and refreshing mint flavor, grasshopper icebox pie became one of the most eye-catching desserts of the late 1950s. Inspired by the famous mint cocktail that was growing in popularity at elegant dinner parties, Betty Crocker transformed those familiar flavors into a chilled family dessert that looked sophisticated while remaining surprisingly easy to prepare. It quickly became a favorite whenever guests gathered for summer entertaining. The pie began with a crisp chocolate cookie crust pressed firmly into a pie plate and chilled until set. The filling combined fluffy marshmallow cream with freshly whipped cream, creating a light and airy texture that practically melted on the tongue. A touch of mint flavoring and a hint of chocolate were carefully blended into the mixture, producing the dessert's signature cool taste and delicate green color that immediately captured everyone's attention. Once poured into the prepared crust, the pie rested in the refrigerator for several hours until perfectly firm. Before serving, many homemakers decorated the top with chocolate shavings, whipped cream rosettes, or a few fresh mint leaves, giving the dessert an elegant appearance worthy of any special occasion. Every slice offered the perfect balance of creamy sweetness, refreshing mint, and rich chocolate. Grasshopper icebox pie became especially popular at bridge clubs, anniversary dinners, neighborhood parties, and holiday celebrations because it could be prepared well ahead of time. Guests often admired its beautiful color before taking their first bite, and it rarely lasted long once dessert plates were passed around the table. Although modern dessert menus feature countless mint creations, few possess the timeless charm of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. It reflected an era when presentation, simplicity, and homemade hospitality mattered more than complicated techniques. Every cool slice carried the refreshing spirit of a 1950s summer evening, reminding families that some of the most memorable desserts were created with little more than imagination, a dependable refrigerator, and recipes lovingly shared from one generation to the next. 14. Chocolate Angel Food Icebox Torte. During the 1950s, resourceful homemakers believed that no good cake should ever go to waste. Even a slightly stale angel food cake could become the foundation of an elegant dessert with the help of a little imagination and a dependable refrigerator. Betty Crocker's Chocolate Angel Food Icebox Torte was one of those clever creations that transformed simple leftovers into a centerpiece worthy of birthdays, Sunday dinners, and family celebrations. The dessert began with a store-bought or homemade angel food cake, prized for its light, airy texture. Instead of serving it plain, slices were layered with a silky chocolate filling made from rich cocoa, sugar, vanilla, and freshly whipped cream. Some homemakers added tiny chocolate shavings or chopped walnuts between the layers, creating extra flavor and a pleasant crunch without overwhelming the delicate cake. Once assembled, the torte was covered carefully and placed in the refrigerator overnight. As it chilled, the chocolate filling slowly soaked into the airy sponge, making every layer incredibly soft and moist while still keeping its shape. By the following day, the once simple angel food cake had become a luxurious chilled dessert that looked as though it had come from an expensive bakery. Before serving, the top was often decorated with whipped cream swirls, chocolate curls, or a light dusting of cocoa powder. Every slice revealed beautiful alternating layers of snowy white cake and creamy chocolate filling, making it just as impressive to look at as it was to eat. This dessert quickly became a favorite for church gatherings, anniversaries, and neighborhood dinner parties because it stretched modest ingredients into something truly memorable. Guests rarely guessed how easy it had been to prepare. Although today's bakeries offer countless chocolate cakes, few carry the quiet elegance of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. It reminds us that the best family recipes were often born from thrift, creativity, and the simple desire to make every gathering feel just a little more special with homemade love. 15. Pink Lemonade Icebox Pie. Nothing captured the cheerful spirit of a 1950s summer quite like pink lemonade icebox pie. With its delicate rosy color and refreshing sweet tart flavor, this chilled dessert became an instant favorite at backyard barbecues, church picnics, and family reunions. As frozen juice concentrates gained popularity in American supermarkets, Betty Crocker introduced creative recipes that helped homemakers prepare impressive desserts without heating the kitchen on sweltering afternoons. The pie began with a crisp graham cracker crust pressed into a pie plate using crushed crackers, melted butter, and a touch of sugar. The filling came together with remarkable ease. Frozen pink lemonade concentrate was blended with sweetened condensed milk, creating a naturally thick and silky mixture through the reaction between the citrus juice and the milk. Freshly whipped cream was folded in gently, giving the filling a light, airy texture while preserving its bright lemonade flavor. Once poured into the prepared crust, the pie was refrigerated for several hours until perfectly firm. The finished dessert displayed a beautiful pastel pink filling that looked especially elegant when topped with whipped cream, thin lemon slices, or a sprinkle of finely grated lemon zest. Every cool bite delivered the perfect balance of creamy sweetness and refreshing citrus, making it an ideal ending to a hearty summer meal. Children were drawn to its playful color, while adults appreciated its refreshing taste after long afternoons spent gardening, attending neighborhood cookouts, or relaxing on the front porch. Because it could be made well ahead of time, it quickly became one of those dependable recipes that every busy homemaker kept close at hand. Although countless lemon desserts fill bakery displays today, few recreate the nostalgic charm of this forgotten Betty Crocker favorite. It reminds us of an era when simple ingredients, clever kitchen shortcuts, and a reliable refrigerator could produce a dessert that brought smiles to every generation gathered around the family table on a warm summer evening. 16. Cherry Cheesecake Icebox Squares. Before no-bake cheesecakes became a staple in modern kitchens, Betty Crocker introduced chilled cream cheese desserts that delighted families throughout the 1950s. One of the most beloved was Cherry Cheesecake Icebox Squares, a refreshing treat that combined a rich, creamy filling with bright fruit topping. It was elegant enough for special occasions, yet simple enough to prepare on an ordinary summer weekend without ever turning on the oven. The dessert began with a buttery graham cracker crust pressed firmly into a square baking pan and chilled until it held together. Softened cream cheese was beaten until perfectly smooth, then blended with powdered sugar, vanilla, and freshly whipped cream. The mixture became light, silky, and wonderfully rich without feeling overly heavy. Once spread evenly over the chilled crust, it was returned to the refrigerator so the filling could slowly firm into neat, sliceable layers. The final touch was a generous layer of sweet cherry topping spooned carefully across the creamy surface. The deep red cherries created a beautiful contrast against the snowy white filling, making every square look as though it belonged in the window of a neighborhood bakery. Some homemakers added a few crushed graham crackers around the edges for extra texture, while others served the dessert exactly as it came from the refrigerator. Cherry Cheesecake Icebox Squares quickly became a favorite at birthday parties, church suppers, family reunions, and holiday gatherings because they could be prepared the day before and served straight from the pan. Every chilled bite offered the perfect combination of creamy cheesecake, crisp crust, and juicy cherries, leaving guests eager for a second helping. Although modern bakeries now offer endless cheesecake varieties, Few capture the homemade comfort of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. It reminds us of a time when simple ingredients, thoughtful preparation, and family traditions created desserts that brought generations together, proving that the sweetest memories were often made around a humble refrigerator dessert shared with loved ones. 17. Black Forest Icebox Layer Dessert. Long before Black Forest cake became a familiar sight in American bakeries, Betty Crocker inspired homemakers to create a simpler refrigerator version that delivered the same irresistible combination of chocolate and cherries. Without requiring complicated baking techniques, the Black Forest Icebox Layer dessert became a favorite for families who wanted something elegant, refreshing, and perfect for warm summer evenings. The dessert started with layers of crisp chocolate wafers or graham crackers arranged neatly inside a glass baking dish. A smooth chocolate pudding, made from rich cocoa, milk, and a touch of vanilla, was spread generously over the first layer before sweet cherries were scattered across the surface. During cherry season, fresh fruit was often used, while dark sweet cherries made this dessert possible throughout the rest of the year. Freshly whipped cream added another light layer before the process was repeated again. Once assembled, the dessert was covered and placed in the refrigerator overnight. As the hours passed, the cookies slowly absorbed moisture from the pudding and cream, softening into delicate cake-like layers. By the following day, every slice revealed beautiful ribbons of chocolate, cherries, and creamy filling that looked remarkably similar to a traditional Black Forest cake but required no oven at all. Many homemakers finished the dessert with chocolate shavings, extra whipped cream, and a few whole cherries placed carefully across the top. It became a popular centerpiece for birthdays, Sunday dinners, neighborhood gatherings, and anniversary celebrations because it looked impressive while remaining surprisingly affordable. Although today's bakeries offer elaborate Black Forest cakes decorated with towering layers and intricate designs, this forgotten Betty Crocker refrigerator dessert possessed a special charm all its own. Every chilled bite combined rich chocolate, juicy cherries, and creamy sweetness into a comforting reminder that the most treasured family recipes were often the simplest ones, lovingly prepared the night before and shared around the table with smiles, laughter, and lasting memories. 18. Ambrosia Icebox Salad. For many American families in the 1950s, no summer gathering felt complete without a chilled bowl of ambrosia icebox salad waiting on the table. Betty Crocker embraced this colorful favorite because it was easy to prepare, beautifully refreshing, and filled with ingredients that symbolized hospitality. Whether served after Sunday dinner or alongside a holiday buffet, it brought a cheerful burst of sweetness that everyone looked forward to. The dessert combined juicy orange segments, crushed pineapple, maraschino cherries, sweet coconut flakes, and fluffy miniature marshmallows in a large glass bowl. Instead of baking or cooking, homemakers simply folded the fruit together with freshly whipped cream or a creamy dressing made from sour cream and a touch of sugar. Every ingredient contributed its own texture, creating a dessert that was light, colorful, and surprisingly satisfying. After several hours in the refrigerator, the flavors blended beautifully. The fruit released its natural juices into the creamy mixture, while the marshmallows softened just enough to become tender without losing their shape. The coconut added a gentle chewiness that balanced the smooth cream and juicy fruit. Served ice-cold in crystal dessert dishes, ambrosia looked elegant enough for company yet remained simple enough for everyday family meals. Children loved searching for the bright red cherries hidden throughout the bowl, while adults appreciated its refreshing taste after a hearty dinner. It became a familiar sight at church suppers, neighborhood picnics, Easter lunches, and Christmas celebrations, proving that a dessert did not need chocolate or cake to become unforgettable. Although fruit salads continue to appear on modern tables, few capture the nostalgic charm of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. Every spoonful reflected an era when colorful presentation, fresh ingredients, and homemade care mattered just as much as flavor. It remains a delicious reminder that the sweetest family traditions were often created with the simplest recipes and shared around a table filled with laughter, conversation, and lasting memories. 19. Mocha Refrigerator Eclair Cake. As America's love for coffee continued to grow during the 1950s, Betty Crocker introduced desserts that carried the rich aroma of a favorite afternoon cup into the world of chilled treats. One forgotten favorite was the mocha refrigerator éclair cake, an elegant no-bake dessert that combined creamy coffee filling with tender layers that resembled delicate pastry, all without requiring a single minute in the oven. The recipe began with rows of crisp graham crackers arranged neatly across the bottom of a rectangular glass baking dish. A smooth filling was prepared by blending vanilla pudding with freshly whipped cream and a small amount of dissolved instant coffee, creating a light mocha flavor that was gentle enough for the whole family to enjoy. Each layer of crackers was covered generously with the creamy mixture before another layer was carefully added, building the dessert one section at a time. After resting overnight in the refrigerator, the transformation was remarkable. The graham crackers slowly absorbed moisture from the filling, becoming soft and delicate like the pastry layers of a traditional éclair. A glossy chocolate topping was spread across the surface before serving, giving the dessert a polished appearance that made it look as though it had come from an upscale bakery window. This refrigerator cake quickly became a favorite for bridge clubs, Sunday dinners, neighborhood gatherings, and family celebrations because it could be prepared a full day in advance. Every chilled slice delivered creamy coffee flavor, smooth chocolate, and tender layers that practically melted with each bite. Although modern cafes now serve elaborate coffee desserts, few capture the quiet elegance of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. It reflected a time when simple pantry staples, thoughtful preparation, and a dependable refrigerator could create something truly memorable. Every slice reminded families that the finest desserts were not always the most complicated, but the ones lovingly shared around the table with friends, laughter, and stories that lasted for generations. 20. Lemon Icebox Pie. Few desserts captured the refreshing spirit of a 1950s summer better than lemon icebox pie. Featured in Betty Crocker recipe collections and passed from one family to another, this chilled classic became a dependable favorite whenever the weather turned too warm for baking. Its bright citrus flavor, silky texture, and effortless preparation made it the perfect ending to Sunday dinners, church suppers, and neighborhood picnics. The pie began with a crisp graham cracker crust made from crushed crackers, melted butter, and a little sugar, pressed firmly into a pie plate before being chilled. The filling relied on a simple but remarkable combination of sweetened condensed milk and freshly squeezed lemon juice. As the tart juice was whisked into the creamy milk, the mixture thickened naturally without needing eggs or heat. A splash of vanilla and finely grated lemon zest added even more freshness before the filling was poured into the prepared crust. After several hours in the refrigerator, the pie became smooth, firm, and perfectly sliceable. Many homemakers finished it with generous swirls of whipped cream and thin lemon slices, creating a dessert that looked elegant despite requiring only a handful of everyday ingredients. The cool, creamy filling balanced sweetness with just the right amount of citrus, making every bite light and refreshing. Lemon icebox pie quickly became a staple at family reunions, summer birthdays, holiday gatherings, and 4th of July celebrations because it could be made well ahead of time and served straight from the refrigerator. Guests often reached for a second slice before the meal was even over. Although modern bakeries offer countless lemon desserts, few capture the timeless simplicity of this forgotten Betty Crocker favorite. Every chilled slice reminds us of an era when homemade recipes, shared laughter, and a cool kitchen on a hot summer afternoon were all the ingredients needed to create memories that lasted long after dessert plates had been cleared away. 21. Mandarin Orange Icebox Delight. As canned mandarin oranges became easier to find in American grocery stores during the 1950s, Betty Crocker introduced refreshing refrigerator desserts that added a touch of sunshine to the family table. One of the most memorable was Mandarin Orange Icebox Delight, a cool, creamy treat that perfectly balanced bright citrus flavor with light, fluffy texture. It quickly became a favorite for warm weather gatherings when homemakers wanted an elegant dessert without heating the kitchen. The dessert began with a buttery vanilla wafer crust pressed into a square baking dish and chilled until firm. A creamy filling was prepared by blending softened cream cheese with powdered sugar and a splash of vanilla before gently folding in freshly whipped cream. Carefully drained mandarin orange segments were then mixed into the filling, adding bursts of sweet citrus in every spoonful while keeping the delicate fruit beautifully intact. Once the filling was spread over the crust, the dessert rested in the refrigerator for several hours. During that time, the flavors blended together, creating a silky texture that was both rich and refreshing. Many homemakers decorated the top with extra orange segments arranged in neat circles or a light sprinkle of grated orange zest, giving the finished dessert a cheerful appearance that looked perfect on a summer buffet. Mandarin orange icebox delight often appeared at bridal showers, church socials, Easter dinners, and neighborhood picnics because it could be prepared well ahead of time. Guests admired its bright color and refreshing taste, while children loved discovering the juicy orange pieces hidden inside the creamy filling. Although citrus desserts remain popular today, this forgotten Betty Crocker favorite has quietly disappeared from many family recipe boxes. Yet, every chilled bite still captures the simple elegance of the 1950s, when a dependable refrigerator, a handful of pantry staples, and a little creativity were enough to create unforgettable desserts. It remains a delicious reminder that some of America's sweetest traditions deserve to be enjoyed once again. 22. Peppermint Icebox Loaf. Although peppermint is often associated with the holiday season today, it was once a refreshing favorite throughout the summer months. During the 1950s, Betty Crocker encouraged homemakers to experiment with cool mint-flavored desserts, and peppermint icebox loaf quickly became a memorable addition to family tables. Its creamy texture, delicate pink color, and refreshing flavor made it a welcome treat after warm evenings spent outdoors. The dessert began with a loaf pan lined carefully with wax paper for easy removal. A layer of crushed chocolate cookies formed the base, providing a rich contrast to the cool peppermint filling. Freshly whipped cream was folded together with softened marshmallow cream, a hint of peppermint extract, and finely crushed peppermint candies. The mixture became light, fluffy, and beautifully speckled with tiny red and white pieces that added both color and gentle crunch. Once poured into the prepared pan, another light layer of chocolate cookie crumbs was added before the loaf was covered and placed in the refrigerator overnight. As it chilled, the filling became firm enough to slice while remaining smooth and creamy. When lifted from the pan and cut into neat portions, every slice revealed delicate pink layers framed by rich chocolate crumbs, creating an elegant presentation with very little effort. Peppermint icebox loaf became a favorite for birthday celebrations, neighborhood dinners, church socials, and weekend family gatherings because it could be prepared well in advance. Children loved its candy-like flavor, while adults appreciated its refreshing finish after a hearty summer meal. Although mint desserts now appear mostly during the winter holidays, this forgotten Betty Crocker classic reminds us that peppermint once brightened kitchens all year long. Every cool slice reflected the creativity of 1950s homemakers, who transformed ordinary pantry ingredients into beautiful desserts that delighted guests. It remains a refreshing reminder that some of the sweetest family traditions deserve to be rediscovered and shared with a new generation. 23. Frozen Peach Icebox Torte. When peach season arrived in the 1950s, kitchens across America filled with the sweet fragrance of freshly picked fruit. Betty Crocker embraced the season with recipes that celebrated peaches in simple yet elegant ways, and the frozen peach icebox torte quickly became a summertime favorite. Cool, creamy, and bursting with natural fruit flavor, it offered families a refreshing dessert that required little more than a refrigerator and a few wholesome ingredients. The torte began with a buttery graham cracker crust pressed into a springform pan and chilled until firm. Ripe peaches were peeled, finely chopped, and gently mixed with sugar to enhance their natural sweetness. The fruit was then folded into a smooth blend of softened cream cheese, whipped cream, and a splash of vanilla, creating a filling that was both rich and surprisingly light. A touch of lemon juice brightened the flavor while helping preserve the peach's fresh color. After the filling was spread evenly over the crust, the dessert rested in the refrigerator for several hours until perfectly set. Some homemakers placed it briefly in the freezer before serving, giving each slice an even cooler, almost ice cream-like texture. The finished torte was often decorated with thin peach slices arranged in a fan pattern or a few fresh mint leaves, making it an attractive centerpiece for any gathering. Frozen peach icebox torte became a welcome addition to family reunions, church picnics, Sunday suppers, and neighborhood celebrations because it could be prepared ahead of time and served straight from the refrigerator. Every bite combined creamy richness with the delicate sweetness of fresh peaches, making it one of the season's most anticipated desserts. Although modern frozen desserts now crowd supermarket freezers, few recreate the homemade charm of this forgotten Betty Crocker classic. It reminds us that the finest summer memories often came from simple ingredients, ripe seasonal fruit, and the joy of sharing a cool homemade dessert with family gathered around the table. 24. Lime Cottage Cheese Icebox Mold. Few desserts divide opinions today quite like the lime cottage cheese icebox mold, yet during the 1950s it was considered a stylish addition to countless Betty Crocker menus. Combining sweet, creamy, and slightly tangy flavors, this chilled creation reflected an era when molded refrigerator desserts were the centerpiece of church suppers, ladies' luncheons, and family reunions. It was proof that convenience foods could still look elegant on the dinner table. The recipe began by dissolving lime-flavored gelatin in hot water before allowing it to cool slightly. Smooth cottage cheese was then folded into the mixture along with crushed pineapple, creating a creamy texture filled with tiny bursts of tropical sweetness. Chopped walnuts or pecans were often stirred in for extra crunch, while a spoonful of whipped cream made the mixture even lighter. Every ingredient blended together into a pale green filling that looked as refreshing as it tasted. Once poured into a decorative ring mold, the dessert rested in the refrigerator for several hours until completely firm. When it was time to serve, the mold was dipped briefly into warm water before being inverted onto a glass platter. The glossy green ring held its beautiful shape perfectly, often surrounded by crisp lettuce leaves or garnished with pineapple slices and bright maraschino cherries for a colorful presentation. Although the combination may seem unusual today, families of the 1950s admired its balance of creamy, fruity, and nutty flavors. It appeared regularly at Easter dinners, holiday buffets, neighborhood potlucks, and Sunday lunches because it could be prepared well ahead of time and served straight from the refrigerator. Modern dessert trends have largely left recipes like this behind, but the lime cottage cheese icebox mold remains a fascinating reminder of mid-century American cooking. It reflects a time when creativity, convenience, and presentation came together in ways that made every family gathering feel just a little more memorable and delightfully unique. 25. Vanilla Icebox Custard Pie. To close our journey through Betty Crocker's forgotten refrigerator desserts, few recipes deserve the final spotlight more than the timeless vanilla icebox custard pie. While flashier desserts often captured attention with bright colors and fancy decorations, this humble classic earned its place through pure comfort. It represented everything families loved about 1950s home cooking: simple ingredients, careful preparation, and unforgettable flavor shared around the dinner table. The pie began with a crisp graham cracker crust pressed into a glass pie plate and chilled until firm. The filling was made by blending rich vanilla custard with sweetened condensed milk, a touch of fresh cream, and fragrant vanilla extract until perfectly smooth. Some homemakers added a little unflavored gelatin to help the custard hold its shape, while others relied on a traditional chilled cream filling that became silky after several hours in the refrigerator. Either method created a dessert that was cool, creamy, and wonderfully satisfying. Once the filling had fully set, the pie was finished with generous swirls of freshly whipped cream and a light dusting of grated nutmeg or crushed vanilla wafers. Every slice offered a delicate balance of buttery crust and velvety vanilla filling that melted effortlessly with each bite. It was often served after Sunday roast dinners, family reunions, and quiet evenings on the porch, where conversation lasted long after dessert plates had been cleared away. Although many of these icebox desserts have slowly disappeared from modern kitchens, they remain treasured reminders of an era when homemade recipes brought families closer together. They tell the story of grandmothers who measured with experience instead of timers, mothers who created memorable treats with modest pantry staples, and children who waited impatiently beside the refrigerator for dessert to be ready. Perhaps it is time to bring these forgotten Betty Crocker classics back to the table, one cool, creamy slice at a time. And there you have it, 25 forgotten Betty Crocker icebox desserts that once made summers a little sweeter and family gatherings a lot more memorable. These chilled classics remind us that some of the most beloved recipes never came from fancy bakeries. They came from well-worn cookbooks, handwritten recipe cards, and the loving hands of mothers and grandmothers who turned simple pantry staples into unforgettable traditions. Which of these desserts brought back the strongest memories for you? Was it a creamy icebox pie, a colorful gelatin masterpiece, or a layered refrigerator cake you have not seen in decades? Share your favorite in the comments below. Your memories might inspire someone else to bring a forgotten family recipe back to life. If you enjoyed this trip into America's culinary past, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to America's Lost Recipes, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another journey through the forgotten flavors that helped shape generations. Until next time, keep those treasured recipes alive, cherish the stories behind every dish, and remember that sometimes the sweetest memories are the ones waiting quietly inside an old family cookbook. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.